Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by director Ian Hunt-Duffy, who recently directed Double Blind. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Hi, thanks very much for having
So what was sort of the inspiration for making this film or the impetus for making this film?
me. So myself and the screenwriter Derek McGarrigle, we've known each other for years. We've worked together on our short films together. We went to film school together, so we had very similar sensibilities, and we're big genre fans, horror thrillers, in particular ones with a high concept or a hook.
Hmm.
Like I love horror films that have a rule, a clearly defined rule that the characters can't break. So Tremors is an old favorite of ours. Don't touch the ground. Ring, don't watch the videotape. All these kind of clear hooks that are a great in for an
Hmm.
audience. So I knew for our first feature film, I wanted something high concept if possible, but also self-contained. But I knew as a first-time feature filmmaker, I wouldn't have a huge budget. So I was trying to be pragmatic and think, okay, is there something we can do in a single location,
Hmm.
that would really help us from a budget and a logistical point of view, but from a storytelling point of view as well. Like you can create a lot of suspense and claustrophobia and tension in this one environment. So those are kind of I guess, the parameters that myself and Derek were working within to see if we could develop a concept that would fit in those kind of restricted rules. And Derek had this hook, this concept of if you fall asleep, you die. And I just remember when he pitched me that, I was just like, okay, that's it. We've got to do something with that. That's got to be the film. And that was kind of the jumping off point. And then, we're thinking, okay, one location, what could that be? And Derek always wanted to do something about drug trial. He loves that kind of world. It's like a mini world on into itself
Hmm.
with characters, and you can have different, people from different areas of society and stuff. So we thought, okay, maybe if we can get a drug trial that's gone wrong, and this is the side effect of the drug, if you fall asleep, you die. So, sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but that was sort of
No, no, it
how
was great.
we came up with the concept. That was from there we developed it into a screenplay.
What were the inspirations for when you were directing? Like for the look and the feel, what would you guys turn to for inspiration?
I'm a big John Carpenter fan, so The Thing, I don't know if you've seen The Thing,
Yeah.
John
Oh,
Carpenter.
yeah.
That was definitely top of my list in terms of just the atmosphere that I wanted to create, that kind of tone, that cold atmosphere in this, empty environment. So I'd say yeah, John Carpenter was definitely a big influence for me, and that transpired into the score as well with our composer D Hexon.
Hmm.
Both big John Carpenter fans. We wanted to see if we could have a little of that synth John Carpenter bassy score as well, do our own spin on it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would say that, and then I mean, we have a lot of references, or there's a lot of touch points for me. I mean, The Shining is in there. I mean, there's other horror films in kind of one location thrillers that inspired us as well in terms of look and design. Even Cube was one from back in the day.
My friends and I would make little videos in our backyards, imitations of Indiana Jones and Star Wars. Eventually that need to tell stories became more of a technical interest and an interest in the art. To me, what's exciting is using cinema in its full potential, which is rhythm and sound design and music. Our job is to set up expectations and then deliver on them. I'm Brian Cates, and this is my course in film editing.
That's in my notes. I have Cronenberg, Requiem for a Dream for the Cutting, and Cube were
Yes, yeah,
three that sort of stuck out for me.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
no, I mean, my prep was sort of like, myself and my cinematographer, we would sit down and we put a watch list together of films, in the genre that we liked or we thought could work, and kind of, we would kind of like a magpie then picking picking pieces that we liked, that maybe we could do something like this, or that's a good reference point there, and that kind of thing.
well, it's interesting that you brought up like the cold feeling because the thing that stood out for me was the use of architecture or the way the building's built to create that cold feeling. Like even though the trees are there with the light coming down,
Hmm.
it still feels cold. So I'm wondering, like, what architecture inspired you, I guess. I don't know if it would inspire you to feel that way, but where did you turn to for that sort of look and feel?
Well, that was something, yeah. I mean, myself and our production designer, Steve Kingston, we definitely had a lot of conversations early on about the feel of the facility. And I know it's like a cliche to say the location is a character of itself, but that was sort of what we are going for. We wanted, like, the Nostromo and Alien, or, the Outpost 31 and The Thing, like they have this really distinctive feel and character to themselves, the location. And because it's one location, like you have to make it distinctive and interesting. So, um, we, we've talked a lot about the company Blackwood Pharmaceuticals, who are
Mhm.
they're running the trial. Okay, what would be their sort of image? And we thought, okay, they're a global pharmaceutical brand, so they have like deep pockets. So they would have, how do we show that? How do we show that they're a well-funded facility, but we don't have a huge budget to show that? Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then we talked about, okay, more minimalist style. Sometimes you can, a minimalist style can reflect, consideration or wealth as such.
Mhm.
So that played into us because we didn't have a huge budget, and we'll use an empty space and minimal dressing and make that the style of it. There was some Japanese architecture. There's some Japanese influences in there as well from Steve brought that in, but also in our talks about, like, it has an 80s kind of sci-fi film vibe in some of it, like,
Mhm.
like the Weyland Yutani Corporation from Aliens, or Tyrell Corporation from Blade Runner, and Cyberdyne. These are all kind of, films I grew up on in the 80s, and the genre films that got me into filmmaking in the first place. So we are trying to like have touches of that, so that kind of Japanese feel in there. Um, I think the garden, the tree in the common room, the garden around that is a Japanese garden as well. And Steve, you'd have to talk to him. He had a lot of like kind of method behind it, and reasoning about like the feng shui of the room and all this kind of stuff that fit into the architecture. But the original touch point, I suppose, I wanted like kind of bare concrete, or it's supposed to be this subterranean bunker as such,
Mhm.
like it's underground, it's windowless, there's no
Yeah,
source of natural light. And I just wanted this kind of, yeah, this cold clinical space, but that we could then put flashes of design on it,
yeah,
and have like these long corridors that were, a warren or a maze for the characters. They would seem endless,
yeah.
so yeah.
What's interesting, because you mentioned The Thing again, and maybe it's because I'm a Canadian and I like the cold, but I always find that there's not that many horror movies set in cold locations or cold settings in any way. Like I can only think of The Thing and I Spy, I think is the other one. But like essentially the world, like I don't want to say the world dies, but like, the trees lose their leaves, there's a lack of life in there.
Mm.
So I'm surprised there's not more films made, like horror films or thrillers done in the winter.
There probably are. I mean, I could, the 30 Days a Night is one that
Oh,
springs to mind.
there's another one.
I'm sure there's a bunch. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I get your point. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, it's so, I suppose that was the thing. Like, there's no exterior really to this. It's all interior. So it was about
Mhm.
evoking that in lighting, or in, sound design, just kind of having just this, yeah. I wanted to feel artificial, and there were the kind of only nod to nature, I suppose, is that tree, but even
Yeah.
that's sort of artificial in its like its randomness in this, like, it seems like a tokenistic gesture from them.
Yeah.
Oh, put a tree, and that's enough for you to remember the outside, like. So I just thought that would play into the claustrophobia of the world.
Yeah. Well, and like, how did you approach building? There's like a slow burn to this film, like over the time, sort of like The Thing or, like you said, Cube and what have you. So I'm wondering, as a director, when you're working with the editors or with even on set, how did you go about, directing this to create that pacing so that it was a nice slow burn, but still kept us hooked?
Good question. I mean, there was obviously an inherent build in the script itself. We had a great
Mhm.
script from Derek as a foundation to build on. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess the pacing would come from largely in the edit we would build that. I would have shot listed everything ahead of time, and I would, be conscious of a tempo, and I would have talked about that with our cinematographer, that we would start off more kind of classically composed, more locked off in the
Mhm.
beginning, and it's it gradually becomes a little looser as it goes on, as they start to hallucinate, as the tempo rises, you know. So there
Yeah.
were descriptions of a kind of, we were pointers into film, I suppose, like where we would change the style. But I'd say a lot of that was found in the edit as well, just working with Colin Campbell, our editor, you know, really, I guess we did do a test screening of it as well. So that's where we found where, okay, there's the second act is kind of sagging here. We can feel it's a bit slow. We got to cut that out. We can pace up the start. And yeah, I mean, we tried to keep it, it's a weird one because I wanted it, it's a 90-minute movie, so I wanted it to be lean and, you know, I didn't want it to feel sluggish or anything like that. But there were kind of certain peaks and troughs. And because you're dealing with people with sleep deprivation and they have to be tired, like, you know, there's certain things that you have, you know, where it slows down, I guess. And then it's trying to keep those bits as short as possible, I suppose, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, there might be a death in it, and then there's going to be a natural drop off for a few minutes, and you have to pick it back up again. So, yeah, it's just it's something you find in the edit, I suppose, when we went through a number of cuts and, as I said, test screenings and different, you know, getting lots of notes and stuff. So, yeah.
Any crazy notes? Any weird notes you got from the screening? Because I always find those like sometimes it'll be like something way out of left field that one person says at the screening, everyone else is like, no, that was fine, but it was, you know, I didn't like the color of the wall or something weird like that.
Nothing too crazy now, but there was one person who stayed behind for like a focus group after screening and said, I don't like this, like, you know, upfront kind of disclaimer saying, I don't really like horror films. I don't like anything bloody or
Why
violent.
did they come?
So why did they stay? That was my question. And of course, then all of their notes were like, oh, it's too violent, it's too bloody. And you know, they're making, oh yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And I was like, well, you're clearly not the intended
Yeah.
audience. You're never gonna
Yeah.
watch this. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
that was,
wouldn't have picked it up at the
yeah.
movie store if you were looking at it.
So that was a bit frustrating that you have to like then take that person's note on board because they're never going to watch this movie, you know, and in other circumstances they wouldn't have watched it. So yeah, the other stuff that came out of the test screen, I mean, we cut a few scenes, like Blackwood, the scenes where the Dr. Burke who's running the trial is talking to Blackwood. There were a lot more of those actually in the film, and like you actually saw the faces on screen. They're much more of a presence in the film. But that was something that just didn't test well at all. And it just became apparent very quickly once we tested that, oh, it would actually be much better if we never saw them if they were a face. And it, you know, it was such an obvious thing. Of course, they should be faceless, and
Yeah.
it's more sinister, like the less you see of them, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you know, that's just something I guess we didn't see until I suppose we showed it to an audience, and then okay, we changed that. There were a couple of other scenes that we deleted. I'm trying to think. No, this is full spoiler. Yeah, I can talk about the
Yeah,
people. Yeah, no, just things like, yeah, like certain deaths were changed, or like the stabbing scene was reduced because that was actually longer than it is now. I wanted it longer. I wanted it to be the point of it was that it was excessive that he had snapped, you know, but
yeah.
that had to be. So we were counting stabs, you know. Okay, we've lost 3 more stabs, or 4 more stabs, or 5 more. You know, it was getting to that sort of minutia on some of the violence. But no, but I think it was a good experience doing a test screening because, you know, when you're editing, you can kind of convince yourself that certain things are working. I go, oh, you know, like there might be problems, but you go, no, I think that's okay. And it's only then when you sit in a theater with an audience that all of a sudden you feel it in your gut and you go, oh no, that's not working. Like, you know, it really, you can't hide from it then, you know, if something, yeah, you just feel it in the room when something's not working, you know.
Yeah.
So that is a good experience. It's tough, but I think it's definitely worthwhile. Every filmmaker should do it, even if it's a short film. We did it on one of our short films as well. We just got like some friends and people we knew and did a screening, and I definitely would recommend it. It just before you lock your picture, I think it can really improve the material.
Well, it helps build a thick skin when someone's like, I don't like horror films, but I've watched
Yeah.
your film and you're like, what?
And it's tricky because you get all the data as well from the marketing company that did it for us. And, you know, for every, say, like 10 people love the scene, but then 2 people didn't like it. The human nature is to go, what about those 2 people that didn't like it, you know, and focus
Yeah.
on changing it to suit them. But you go, but 10 people liked it, you know, so you always, I guess, as I said, it's human nature. You do focus on the negatives more than the positives sometimes, like, or sometimes it might be 50-50, or it might be, 20 people said they loved it and 20 people said they hate it. And it's like, well, who do you
Yeah.
please then? So you can't please everyone. So.
What I found, one of the things I really found interesting in this was Claire and her mom's relationship,
Mhm.
and how, like, my question was going to be is like, how do you build a relationship when 50% of the participants aren't there? And you guys, it was really interesting how you guys did that. So I'm wondering how you approached that and figured that out.
So it was a long development process with the screenplay so our main kind of funder is Screen Ireland. That's the kind of main
Mhm.
funding body in Ireland where we're from. So they gave us money to develop the screenplay, and we went through 3 rounds of development with them, but that was over like 2 years. Um, and but their main focus was more character based than the plot. Like the plot went through different things as well, of course, but they they really wanted us to try and flesh out Claire, her backstory, and give each character as much as we could. Like, we're aware that in a genre film, you don't have not everyone has to have a fully fleshed out backstory, or
Mhm.
um, so it was just trying to find that balance of how much can we give without it tipping over. Again, going back to, I want to keep it lean, a 90-minute. It's a
Mhm.
thriller and a horror first. It's not a drama as such. So it's just it was tricky to try and find that balance. So credit is due to Derek, the writer, just about, yeah, again, exactly, like peppering enough backstory and
Yeah.
developing that, and trying to find that link between her relationship with her mother, her claustrophobia, and then that kind of how that feeds into her character, her outlook on the world, her fatalistic outlook on the world, and then that sort of reconciliation that she has towards the end, where she kind of sees a correlation between how her mother wasn't able to stop drinking, or just why, that question of why did you keep drinking when you knew it was bad for you. And then she's, it's kind of simplified, but she's like, I understand, because all I want to do is sleep, even though I know it'll kill me. So it's that sort of, I understand why you can't, that kind of,
Mhm.
yeah. So that was just it. That was something that we just wanted to have in there to round off Claire and give her this backstory, and hopefully make a connection for the audience with her character.
Yeah, I thought it worked great. And I think one of the things that made it work was, I'm sorry, I can't remember the actress's name, but whoever played Claire was,
Millie Brady.
oh, yeah, she pulled it off, right? Like, just doing the shot in her phone, talking, creating the story for her mom, or not the story, but like the information, which is something you would probably do, right? It all kind of works out really nicely.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
that's the thing. It's like we just tried to come up with ways that ultimately it's exposition, it's backstory.
hmm,
It's how can we do that in a creative way that doesn't
feel
feel
like, yeah.
heavy-handed, or it's like, yeah. So the phone was a device. Okay, they're making messages because they think they're going to die. This is an opportunity to like kind of sneak in some backstory or
Yeah.
exposition. That was the plan.
So how, when you're working with the actors, like what is your process working with them to get them into the mindset for these characters?
Well, so this was an ensemble cast, and like I really enjoy working with a group of actors. I'd done that on my shorts previously as well. I think for director, I would recommend it to other directors. I think because when you have a group of actors in a room, they elevate each other, they play they off each other, they spark off each other. I think there's almost like a natural competitiveness, I think, as well, the unspoken between actors, that they elevate each other's games because they're trying to raise the stakes. And I think you can feed off that as a director. And you know it's, if you've got six actors in a room with you, that's six other imaginations in a room that you can bounce ideas off and be creative with. So it's really helpful, I think. And so I don't know, in terms of a process, each actor's process is different. I try to, where possible, get to know the actor a little bit beforehand, or just as a person, not necessarily, just talk about their life, or, I would, so like some of these uh, parts were cast more so on we would offer them, and then I would meet up with the actor, we'd have a chat, and we talk about the project. I talk about my life, their interests, that kind of thing. And, just try and build a little relationship that way, and then talk about the project, about the character. And, I get
Mhm.
there, give give my vision for it to them, try and get them excited about it, and then hear their ideas and the things they responded in the script. And that's sort of the starting off point. And then in terms of like a role like this, where it's like the sleep deprivation aspect of it, I suppose they say there is a kind of a physical and a mental side to it. I had ideas myself that I'd done a lot of research on like sleep deprivation and the effects it has on, on the body. Um, I've had a lot of sleep deprivation as a parent when I had my first child. So that was during development of it. So I was keeping a diary of how exhausted I felt and my reflexes and timing, how it affected all that kind of stuff. And I would just keep all this, kind of collate all this together. And then I'd share that with the actors and we talk about their own experiences about it. And we went through the script together and we did up a 10-point sleepiness scale, from 1 to 0, I guess. And then we would just kind of go through the script and mark out, okay, this is like a 4, okay, this is a 5, or, and the kind of attributes that would go with that. So that was, because we weren't shooting in sequence, but it is an arc of, sleep deprivation getting worse and worse. So that helped ground us, I think. And it was very simple, but it was a quick kind of anchor to ground us during production. Okay, this is a 5 or this is a 6 or so. And you go, okay, and look at our little chart and go, okay. So, and they would all bring their own kind of little different physicalities to it, how their gait or how they hold themselves, and then, hair and makeup does a whole lot as well. Just making them look exhausted.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
In your sleep journal, at a certain point, did it ever look like just chicken scratch and you couldn't make it?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I didn't hallucinate now, but quite like the characters in this. But yeah, I don't know if you have children yourself. Or
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking.
I think this film is probably the scariest for new parents. I'd say they're living it.
Jeez. Now, I do want to know, like, because you said you really like genres and you're into genres. Is there a particular genre that you want to work in next?
So I have another script in development with Derek, the same team again. So, and it's the same kind of world horror thriller again. So that'll hopefully be next. I like sci-fi as well. I'm kind of eclectic taste. So when I say genre, ultimately I guess it's story. Suspense would be the bedrock of it. So whether it's a thriller or horror or sci-fi, just something suspenseful, mystery maybe. The stories that kind of grip an audience and keep them guessing. Those are the kind of stories I'm interested in. So yeah, I mean, horror, thriller, maybe sci-fi, but then another day of the week I'd love to do like a crime thriller. Heat is one of my favorite films. I'd love to do like a bank heist film or something, so it depends on what's going. But no, I think like Double Blind was sort of a statement of intent of the type of films I want to be making. So the next one is in the same sort of world and genre, but hopefully on a bigger scale, bigger budget, and that's kind of the kind of sandbox I want to play in.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about suspense and you use, like, Hitchcock gave that story with the bomb under the table and he's got a clock in it. And this one, you just put a clock on the wall and say 24 hours. And so it gives us that ticking
clock device. Yeah. It's blatant, but that was the idea. That exactly that. Like, let's put the clock, let's have it ticking. So, yeah.
Now, my last question for you is, what would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
You're gonna have to like edit a gap here because I still haven't come up with the answer to that. Guilty pleasure. Can you give me an example, a recent one that someone said, and I can see if it's
it ranges. What I tell people is, think of it like you're at home, it's Sunday, there's nothing to do, so you turn on the TV and you find like one of those movies that they've bought a small window and it's like not a great movie and you're like, I'll watch this, I'll sit through it. some people say like certain reality shows. Some people have, like some people have said The Room. Some people have said, some people don't get the concept and they'll be like, Back to the Future. I'm like, well, it's not really guilty, but we'll go with it.
There's actually two of my friends, we have a kind of a group that we watch crap movies, B movies and drinks.
Oh yeah. Any good ones in there that you've seen?
We recently watched Cobra for the first time.
Oh, no way. How'd you like it?
Yeah, I mean, it was insane. So
Ridiculous.
I wouldn't be, that's not something I've rewatched, but I would watch that again. It was you've seen it, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's great.
And even just I've gone into I've done a bit of a deep dive on it now, on the making of it, like the stories behind it. Like it was originally going to be a Beverly Hills Cop. It was that's what he picked. Crazy stuff, and it's just even stuff in it where he rips open someone's shirt, and then there's like you can see the microphone is just strapped to the chest, and he just left it in. They're like, yeah, perfect. Or he's eating the pizza with scissors, and yeah, it's insane stuff. I guess my guilty pleasure would be 80s action movies. Like
those are good.
Like Commando. That was
another good one.
Arnie, and a lot of Arnie movies. I was born and raised on Arnie movies, so Commando. I love Last Action Hero. Actually, that's
one that a lot of people don't bring up when they talk about Arnie. They talk about like Predator and Commando.
I think that was way ahead of its time. I don't think it's a guilty pleasure. I think that's like unironically a great movie. Like it just, the whole meta thing was too soon.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, I guess my guilty pleasure movies are 80s action, Arnie, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
No problem. Thanks a million.
And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.